Hello everyone, Mrs. Kruger here. Today I'm going to give you some gardening tips. I'm certainly not an expert, but I will share everything I know. So the first thing you want to do is find a container to plant your seeds in, and I'm using this recycled cardboard egg container. I'm filling it up with soil. This is a mix of mulch and compost, really good for germinating the seeds. I'm going to start with this gourmet lettuce blend, and these are tiny little seeds, so I'm just pouring them out on a paper towel. I'll take a pinch of each seed, so I'll probably grab several in each little pinch, and then I'm going to use a Sharpie marker to make some indents in the soil, and then I'll go ahead and drop the seeds in. Later, I'll cover this up with more soil, and then I'll water it well. I'll put a tray underneath just so the water doesn't leak through onto any countertops, and put it in a really sunny place. You want to make sure you check the water levels every day. You want to make sure that the soil doesn't dry out too much, so definitely keep it moist, and your seeds should germinate relatively soon, probably within about a week or so. Since I'm putting so many seeds in one pod, I'll have to thin these plants out later to 1 or 2 plants per pod. But if you want, you can actually use equal parts flour, water, and a piece of toilet paper, and you just slather the flour and water over the toilet paper. You can lay your seeds out in these nice, neat little rows, and then once it dries, you can actually plant this in the soil, cover it with a little bit of dirt, and then you'll have these nice, neat little rows. You won't have to worry about thinning your plants out at a later time. There are lots of options for materials that you can use to plant your seeds. So for example, old paper towel rolls that have been cut up and filled up with dirt. You can also use lemon rinds or orange rinds, and those are perfectly safe to plant right into the garden, so you don't have to disturb the roots once your plants have been germinating. You can also use a stale ice cream cone, and you can grow plants out of that and put that right in the ground as well. I decided to use these pods that I bought at a local garden store, and they come with a mesh surrounding that I do have to remove before I can plant the pods in the ground. But I like that they keep the root systems intact, so it makes for easy transitioning to my garden. The next thing to consider is labeling your plants. It's a good idea to have the labels ready ahead of time so you can pop them right in the garden after you've planted each one of your little seedlings. So I bought these bamboo tags off of Amazon, and I thought they were great because I can compost them later, and maybe they'll be good enough to even use for the next season. If you have the time and you're looking to get extra creative, you can do something like this. So someone painted some stones, put some pretty decorations on them, and then just use a Sharpie marker to label the different plants that were in their garden. You want to make sure you have the right tools for your garden. I find just a spade and some gardening gloves works fine for me. And here's an idea: you can use a bucket full of sand to store your tools and keep the blades sharpened. Welcome to my garden, everyone. So you can see I spread wood chips around my garden beds to keep the weed levels down, and then I filled each one of these raised beds with a mixture of wood chips and compost. That helps retain the water. I will have to add fertilizer to these from time to time to keep my plants healthy and growing and getting all of the nutrients they need. That's Jingle, my bunny. She was helping me garden today. So I decided to start by planting my green beans first. So I'm taking my spade and digging a hole in the soil that's about 4 to 6 inches deep. And then I'm going to carefully remove the green bean plant from the tray, trying to disturb the roots as little as possible. So I'm placing the green bean into the soil, covering it with dirt, and then just carefully patting it down so that the plant will stay upright and be secured into the ground. If you're planting green beans in rows, you want to make sure that they're about 4 to 6 inches apart. And then your next row over should be 18 to 24 inches away from your first row. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this. Of course, you can use a tape measure, you can plan your garden out with string. I'm kind of lazy, so I decided just to make a guesstimate. You also want to make sure for green beans that you're planting them along the side of a fence. It's difficult to see, but there is a fence in the background here. Or you have some sort of a trellis, because they do grow vines and they like to climb. So it might be difficult to see, but that first green bean seedling already has a vine on it. If you're new to gardening, green beans are an excellent plant to start with. They're really easy to grow from seed, they're very hardy, and they'll produce plenty of beans for you. Once you get all of your plants in the ground, it's important that you water them thoroughly. I have a large garden, so I used a hose, but you can also use a watering can or even make your own watering can, like this one made of an old milk jug with some holes poked in the top. If you're worried that your plants aren't standing upright, you can try putting a stake in the ground and then attaching your plants using something like an old t-shirt that's been ripped up. It's gentle enough not to break the vines, but still allow the plant to grow. I forgot to mention that you should wait to transplant your seedlings outdoors until a couple weeks after the last frost. You want to make sure the nighttime temperatures aren't dipping down into the 30s. Since New England weather's kind of unpredictable, I decided I would cover my plants in plastic at nighttime. So I have this thin sheet of painter's plastic I'm just laying gently over the plants, and I'm hoping this will help trap some of the heat and protect my plants just in case it gets cold enough at night for some frost to form. Another option would be to use some discarded recyclables like this milk jug. You can put this over individual plants to help trap heat inside as well. As a final note, there will be insects that you do want in your garden and those that you don't. To keep unwanted pests out, you can create a natural bug repellent using a quart of water, 1 tablespoon of canola oil, and a little bit of dishwashing soap. Go ahead and spray that on your plants, and that will hopefully keep the bugs away. To attract pollinators like butterflies and bees, you can try planting some flowers in your garden as well. Plant a little lavender, goldenrod, or fennel, and you'll have some pollinators to help you grow your vegetables. That's all the gardening advice Jingle and I have for you today. Happy gardening, everyone!